Okay, now this is going to be a controversial video, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the people who love this game will be pissed off at me for making this, but I want to do it anyway. That being said, Assassin's Creed Origins. This game was probably the most hyped I've ever been for a video game ever. I made all sorts of videos covering news and leaks related to the game, and in general it was a great time to be an AC fan, as everyone was looking forward to this new direction that the series was taking after the failure of Unity and Syndicate. Origins seemed like a breath of fresh air, and I actually really enjoyed playing it the first time around at launch. So much so that I overlooked a lot of issues with the game. Yet as time passed, my love for this game slowly dwindled as this series strayed further and further away from its roots. And I couldn't help but blame this game for it. But I wanted to make sure whether I still like this game or not by revisiting it and looking at all its elements to see whether they have aged well or not. Anyway, before I begin, I noticed a lot of people who watch my content who aren't subscribed to me. So please guys, if you enjoy this type of content from me, especially covering AC games, I'd highly recommend you subscribe to this channel. Anyway, without rambling on, let's begin dissecting Assassin's Creed Origins, or the bodies I have in my basement. The choice is yours. What do you want to see? Assassin's Creed Origins was a huge departure from the traditional gameplay of the series. The biggest change was the combat, as we went from the animation-based system to a hit-based system just like Dark Souls. This already divided fans a lot. Some really took well to the change, whilst others thought it was too arcadey. Now personally, I really enjoyed the combat in Origins. Might be an unpopular opinion, but the combat in the older AC games really haven't aged that well. They lacked a sense of depth and challenge. AC3 was really the closest we got to combat being competent with the animation-based system. I feel like the biggest problem with that type of combat system was how much it liked taking control away from the player to play fancy animations, which looked cool and badass, yet there's not really much else you can do. Now Origins makes sure you're more in control with how you move in combat, with two types of attacks, the light quick attacks and heavy attacks from holding the button for a little bit longer to do more damage. The shields are there to block and parry incoming attacks so you can launch your own counter attack. There's also the adrenaline bar that fills up with more damage you do, and once your bar is filled up you can unleash a special overpower attack, kind of like the limit breaks from Final Fantasy VII. The one thing I really like about the combat is the sheer variety of weapon types you can use, with each having their own benefits and drawbacks. The dual blades for example are extremely fast, yet they are only useful at close range. Then you have your heavy weapons like the spear or axes that are great at long range and doing damage to various enemies within range, yet you're trading that for speed. And you're not just limited to melee weapons, as there's choices for bows too, with 4 major types, with the hunter bow being your regular bow, the light bow allowing you to shoot a lot of arrows in quick succession, the warrior bow which is like a shotgun type bow where you launch multiple arrows at once, and the predator bow which is like your sniper, with each having their own set of benefits and drawbacks as well during combat. I really like that you're spoiled for choice here, and this is probably the most weapon types you're allowed to have in an AC game. I think Valhalla probably has more types, but I'm not so sure. It's also cool that there are different sets of finisher animations for each. I love how each weapon allows the player room to experiment with different playstyles. Now the challenge part is the different types of enemies you can face at the same time, which keeps things tense. You have the heavy hitting axe soldiers that do a lot of damage, so it is best to avoid those attacks. Then you also have the captains who move quick and also unleash this deadly attack on you, chipping away a lot of health. You also have enemies that can dodge your attacks and throw a smoke screen to disorient you in order to get a quick hit in. These are the ones you have to deal with, and I did get my ass kicked in sometimes, especially when I was slightly underleveled. Though I would say that's nothing compared to the beating I get from my mom. Okay mom, I'll clean my room. Please help me guys, please. Though I do have some gripes, one being the random ass numbers that pop up, which makes it feel very arcadey and kinda takes you out of the immersion. The dodging can also feel a little off, where it feels like the ground is made of an ice skating ring or something. Another thing that really irritated me was that sometimes when I wanted to use the overpower ability to kill the enemy that I've locked on, Bayek just randomly does it on an enemy that I didn't want to use it on. It happened a few times with me and it really frustrated me. Besides that, I found the combat to be pretty fun in Origins. It could be too over the top and ridiculous sometimes, yet honestly I'm willing to overlook that if it's a fun experience. And I'd take this system any day over Odyssey and Valhalla. I honestly think they took this system and made it a lot worse in those games. Getting to the second element of this game, the stealth. Now hear me out. The stealth in this game is broken. I say this because the detection system is fucked in this game, and it's really frustrating that the game doesn't give you any chance to escape detection. As soon as the enemy detects you, the game screen just randomly pauses until the enemy detection bar fills up and the game puts you into full combat. It's even more annoying that pretty much everyone in the camp is notified instantly. I mean, I can't even use a bow and arrow whilst hiding in the bushes since the enemy would instantly spot me. It's clear to me that this game really discourages stealth as a way to play. I know you can do it, but the detection system is designed in such a way that a lot of times you will be forced into combat whether you like it or not. and can be pretty difficult to shake these guards and be anonymous again. Hiding in the bushes can be pretty pointless since they can spot you, and your best course of action is really to face the music. Because losing these guards can take a really long time and you'd be exhausted by then. So that's one major element of the series that's pretty much ruined in Origins. Not saying that the previous games' stealth and detection was any better, but now you don't even get as many opportunities to try out stealth without getting spotted easily. Although you do have some useful stealth tools like the decaying corpse, which can poison multiple enemies around the body and it spreads easily. You got the typical sleep darts and poison darts. The one tool that I did find pretty pointless was a berserk blade. Seriously, why didn't they just make it a dart? Because it requires you to get behind the enemy and stab them for it to work. And a lot of the times the enemies would just detect and attack you since you're within their vicinity, which really defeats the point of using it in the first place, to be honest. You also have Senu, your eagle companion, your eyes in the sky. She helps you in tracking enemies and finding points of interest and hidden objects or people. Now I personally feel that the eagle mechanic should have exclusively been to track enemies only. I think by using it to find treasures and items, it ruins the thrill of discovery and exploration, as I know exactly where to find stuff. It really cheapens exploration in my opinion. That's why limiting their use as an enemy tracking tool only would have been a better call. Especially when you can use Animus Pulse to discover things of interest. Also, I hate that this game starts this eagle gimmick and it's been beaten to death in the games that follow. It also just doesn't make sense how every character has a pet eagle now. Like, why? How can these characters see through eagle's eyes is beyond me. Like, a lot of things in these RPG games don't make sense. That being said, I do like that they come in handy at distracting enemies and also killing prey while you're hunting. There's also naval in this game, which I forgot about. Honestly, I don't even know why they bothered to put it in this game, as it's just kind of pointless. It just seems to be put in the game so you can take part in epic history events, really. But yeah, you play the naval missions in the game as Aya. The naval gameplay is pretty similar to Black Flag, which is not surprising at all since it's the same team that made that game, with cannons replaced with arrows and firebombs acting like the swivel guns to hit the enemy's ship's weak points. You also got the catapult, which is the same as mortars from Black Flag, where you can do aerial strikes on ships. The duck mechanic and ram is also there. This naval gameplay is pretty meh. I don't really vibe with it, as it just kind of feels unnecessary to do these missions, to be honest. I get people really like the naval in Black Flag, but just because it was popular doesn't mean it should be in every single AC game. Now I saved the best for last, parkour, or the lack thereof, because it's shit. This game just took whatever good was left of the parkour and
flushed him down the toilet. Let me see him again.
It's actually an insult to call this parkour. It strips away all depth and makes it so much more simplistic. You can climb pretty much anything and everything with ease. Now some people might not mind that, but personally I like the careful and meticulous approach to parkour in the previous games, to string together different moves to look cool. Sure, it could have used a lot more work, but of course instead of evolving upon it, Ubisoft abandoned it really. Now you just move the joystick forward and Bayek will take care of the climbing for you. It's just so automated that it's not even fun to do. The city environments are also really poorly designed too. It's like they didn't even try. And it sucks that the RPG trilogy really butchered what was left of the advanced movement, a thing that really set Assassin's Creed apart from other stealth games. Oh wait, it's not even a stealth game anymore at this point, to be honest. So out of the three major pillars of the series, Origins only nails one of them, which really says a lot about this game and the future of this series. A major component of gameplay in Origins is exploring and also the importance of XP and leveling, with classic RPG elements where you gain XP by completing quests and activities and level up that way. Yet, I don't like that a lot of the side quests in the game are just clearing bandit camps in disguise. I mean, there are some good side quests in this game, but they mostly appear early on in the game. As the game progresses, you see more of quests that include you going to a bandit camp and rescuing someone or shit like that. Like you can see a clear decline in quality. I don't like that these side quests are just used as an excuse to check off bandit camps from the map, and they could get pretty repetitive, especially towards the end of the game. I also don't like how everything you do in this game is tied to levels and XP, like it's to the point where every activity you do in this game is simplified to just numbers, and it's just so mechanical that all the fun is ripped out from everything, because every time you do a side content, it's not because you want to do it, but because you have to in order to get to the next level, and the weak side quest design makes the process all the more mind-numbing. Unfortunately, this is a design philosophy that Ubisoft introduced with this game, endless grinding, looting and farming XP, and it's made even worse in Odyssey and Valhalla. I would argue that Origins is to blame for these problems that we see in the preceding games. It doesn't help that you're forced to interact with side quests in order to level up and access the next part of the main story. This filler grind really ruins the pacing of the story in my opinion, and even if you want to do the next main quest whilst being pretty underleveled, you're quickly gonna get swamped. I don't know why they designed the game in such a way. Like, I know it's important to level up and all, but this grind to get to the next part is pretty exhausting. Of course, Odyssey and Valhalla are much worse in comparison, but I do think this is where Ubisoft decided to artificially bloat their games with content, for the obvious reason, microtransactions. So you're manipulated into buying the time saver packs and XP booster packs to progress quicker. It's a scummy way Ubisoft decided to design their games specifically around the purpose of selling more of these. It was technically already there since as far as Black Flag, but it's so much worse in the RPG games. Purposefully adding bloat in order to sell you a get-rich-quick scheme solution, like it's a fucking scam. Assassin's Creed Origins also suffers from the question mark problem, where the only points of interest can be found in the question mark, which is kinda like giving away the answers in an exam, as you already know the areas where these points of interest are, so the point of exploring and discovering is pretty much gone since you know where to look. And this is also a bigger problem in Origins, as the map is so big that you can tell how much of it is just empty space by the lack of question marks. This is also a problem that I have with a notable game like The Witcher 3, and it's not surprising that Origins has the same problem since that game served as a massive inspiration for this. Crafting is important in this game, like seriously it is, especially if you want to upgrade your hidden blade since you can't assassinate enemies who are levels above you, which I still find stupid to this day. And so is the fact that you can't headshot enemies with a bow unless it's upgraded. Like I guess logic has just left the chat. I do like the different varieties of game you can hunt in this game, and I also like that the eagles sometimes assist you in taking them out. With the different activities you complete you get XP, and as you level up you unlock an ability point to unlock skills on the skill tree. Some of these are useful I'd say, not all of them though. But yeah, it's your typical RPG skill system. It's not as in depth as something like The Witcher 3 and fairly shallow and surface level. Like I'd prefer something like this any day over whatever the fuck we had in Valhalla, because this shit is just ridiculous. Talking about other side content that you can do in this game, first off the chariot races. Chariot races in the Hippodrome are fun. They can get chaotic, which is part of the fun as I ram the competitors and send them flying. I also like that you can challenge your friends who played the game and beat their timings. Fortunately, I don't have any, so I'm the best. I got nothing to beat. We also got the arena, which is a cool way to showcase your skills with all sorts of traps laid about. It certainly makes things more interesting, so you gotta be more careful with your movements and where you are to avoid getting hit by these traps. I also like that you can use these traps to your advantage in killing your enemies. The timer also helps push you to finish these fights quicker, and you can also challenge your friends. Which again, I don't have any, so I guess that makes me the best. There are also arena boss fights. Now look, I'm gonna be honest here. These were pretty underwhelming as far as fights go. Maybe because I was too over leveled whilst doing these or something, but I didn't feel that challenge or even that much enjoyment in beating these, to be honest. Maybe playing this game with a nightmare difficulty would definitely change my opinion on these, but as far as boss fights go, the best one is clearly the one you fight in the main story, and you can fight them again on your own. The fight which involves these two mercenaries, which I don't really know the name of, but it certainly pushed me to lock in, to be on my feet and also not get trapped in any of their major attacks, since both of them can tag team your ass. I think this is certainly one of the better boss fights in the game, but it's such a shame that I didn't really find the other ones as challenging. The other boss fights you have are the Phylakitai scattered across the world. These can be challenging if you're under-leveled, but honestly once you get better gear and loot in the game, they don't really seem like much of a challenge. Especially if you use a spear, which I pretty much used for every one of them since it was pretty effective in beating these bosses. I'm not gonna lie, that kinda sucks that there really isn't much in terms of tactics you can use to beat these bosses, as they can get pretty damn predictable, which is why they again start feeling like content to do rather than something fun and challenging. And it doesn't help that after doing all that you're rewarded with this shit. I'm sorry, there are definitely better robes than this in this game, and you don't even need to go through the trouble of doing these in order to get those. Then we got the War Elephants, probably the toughest bosses in the game. These ones do require you to be careful and always be on the move, as even enemies can shoot arrows or throw bombs at you, which keeps the fights tense. Yet you pretty much kill each of them the same freaking way, keep shooting arrows at it, again making these pretty tedious to do. Which again makes you feel like you're doing content to waste your time rather than something interesting and worthwhile. And for all that hard work, you just get one freaking ability point. Like seriously, these are the toughest bosses in the game, and this is how you reward me? Like I don't know why, but this game definitely has a problem with how the rewards are sorted. Then we got the Papyrus puzzles, which is one of the activities where I felt like I was generally using my own intuition and exploration to find items. Even exploring the tombs was such a cool experience in my opinion, as I explore and discover things on my own, which should have been the case regardless, but the eagle makes it so much easier for everything else. Unfortunately, the downside of tombs is that the rewards you get in them aren't as good as something you'd get by looting a bandit camp or a random enemy, which is crazy, and in fact it should be the opposite, where genuine exploration and discovery should be rewarded well. It just isn't. I think probably my favorite side content in this game though are the stone circles. These are probably the best contextualized side content in the game, as it's how Bayek used to spend time with his son by gazing at the stars and telling him about all sorts of gods. And this alone makes you feel like doing all of these, as it is a way to not only connect with Bayek but also Khemu. This is probably the only side content that does this in my opinion. The other side content really just feels like content you do to spend the time, and hey, that's fine for people, it's a video game after all. But I think it's a lot better if there's a deeper meaning as to why you would interact with them, why Bayek would interact with them. So that's all there is you could do in Assassin's Creed Origins in terms of side content, and I'm gonna be brutally honest here. A lot of this side content is fun for the first couple hours, but as I was approaching the end of the game, it felt exhausting to go from one place to another, because it really felt like a chore to do all of these, only to gain sufficient enough XP to level up, and I just wanted to end it all honestly. This is the biggest problem with Ubisoft's game design, which they really haven't evolved. It feels like you're ticking things off a list, which just feels so mechanical and not fun at all. Something like this worked back in like 2017, but in 2026, it really shows how dated this Ubisoft formula has become. Which is why a lot of their newer games get banned for this. Origins just barely escaped this criticism, mainly because fans wanted something new with the series. Hell, I wanted something new, and at that point this game really felt like a breath of fresh air. But re-experiencing the side content and exploration again, I really think that this aspect of the game has aged the worst in my opinion. Yet at the same time, I can't help but fall in love with Egypt. No matter what they say about Ubisoft, I can't praise them enough for the beautiful worlds they create. With the lush green mountains, tall pyramids, glittering white deserts. It's a beautifully crafted open world, and another thing which I appreciate a lot in this playthrough are the tiny little details. The cobwebs being burnt by the torch, or Bayek flaying his hands across the grass fields. Also, when Bayek comes out of the water and he swings his arm to get rid of the water, Bayek limps when he falls from a tall height. It's the small things that they do that really make a huge difference in quality, and it's such a shame that they stopped doing it after this game. Odyssey and Valhalla just don't even bother with it. Also, when you arrive in Siva when you start the game for the first time, some of the NPCs have random dialogue welcoming Bayek. It really helps ground you into the game and makes you feel that you're back home as Bayek. Another thing that's pretty cool is that NPCs have a day and night cycle in this game. They eat, sleep, rest like real human beings, which makes them feel like a part of the world instead of just a tool for the player to interact with. What's also interesting is that because of the day and night cycle, it changes completely the shifts and routines of enemies in a guarded camp. So you can use this as an advantage and strike at night when most of them are asleep. I really like that infiltrating the camp during certain parts of the day affects how you interact with stealth, and this adds a different layer to the gameplay. A last detail which blew my mind was that if you stay in the desert too long, you're going to start seeing mirages, and it's really quite cool, the different types of mirages you can see in the game. See, it's the little things that they did with this game that really impressed me far more than the big stuff. Like, you can tell that they put in effort in this game and wanted to make it their best fun. Yet it's the classic Ubisoft bottleneck that really prevents them from reaching their full potential, especially when it comes to game design. The intro of Assassin's Creed Origins is perfect, mainly because of the amazing performance of Abubakar Salim as Bayek. I felt chills all over at this scene. He's seriously such a brilliant actor, and I'm glad he's been getting all the recognition he rightfully deserved. Not just that, but the way the game introduces Bayek's backstory and his vengeful quest for the Order of the Ancients is great. It invests you in this journey right from the start, as you see poor Khemu murdered by the Order using Bayek's hands. That scene is tense, and again, Abubakar Salim nails the shock, sadness and anger that Bayek feels during that scene. Assassin's Creed Origins opening hours are great, the way it introduces you to the world, the gameplay mechanics and the story. But the thing is, it starts falling apart the deeper you get into it. Why? Well, the first reason being the fact that you have to grind in between main quests to get into the required level for the next main quest line, and this really ruins the pacing of the story, especially when you're in some serious story bits in the game, like when you're going to hunt Flavius at the end, yet you have to do side content over side content to get to the required level. Seriously, I don't think Bayek has time for any distractions during this part of the story. It really doesn't make sense character-wise as to why he would do this when he's clouded with vengeance at this point. The next thing I want to address are the retcons. Yes, this game retcons a lot of things in the Assassin's Creed lore. The first is that Bayek and Aya were the first assassins or hidden ones. God, I hate that name. Even though they were clearly assassins before them, as we see in the Auditory Crypt with Darius. There is also the case with Aya's body being in the caves of Siva, even though we clearly see her sarcophagus in one of the assassin tombs from AC2 in Venice. So what's up with that? Even the leap of faith, which is integral to the assassins, has been retconned. Don't get me wrong, I love the moment where Bayek is teaching Khemu how he got taught the leap of faith by his father as a way to overcome his fears and be free. It's a beautiful moment and gives meaning behind why Bayek and the Hidden Ones started doing it. Yet in Odyssey, Darius and Cassandra do it before Bayek. So there goes all the emotional weight of that scene. Another thing that makes no sense whatsoever is that the DLC of Odyssey implies that Aya and Cassandra are related to each other, which makes no fucking sense, because that would mean that Khemu and Aya would have a high concentration of Isu DNA, and the apple would clearly activate when it was given to Khemu in the game, but it didn't. God, the more you think about it, the less sense this damn RPG trilogy makes. These games have made such a fucking mess of the lore, and Origins is the one that clearly started doing it, which really annoys me as someone who used to care about the lore of the series. Now let's get to Aya, our second main character in the game. Now I like Aya, but I can't help but think that she was done dirty by the story, as there are some things which seem pretty off about her in terms of writing. Like, first of all, why does Aya care about helping Cleopatra so much? Like, I guess she might be just using her to find the Order of the Ancients, but she genuinely believes in her and looks up to her as a queen, and I can't see why. Like, at some points it really feels like she's more committed to Cleopatra than Bayek. Also, she doesn't seem to be affected by Khmu's death. We really don't get to see her grieve or even reflect on his death, the way Bayek does. She just seems to be more fond of supporting Cleopatra and killing the Order, really. I think it's very clear in a replay that Aya was supposed to have a bigger role in the game. But again, just like Evie in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, more priority was given to the male character of the game, and most of the game was designed around Bayek. Not that I hate Bayek or anything, but it's such a shame that we didn't really get enough of Aya. Which makes the character feel pretty shallow in this game, and that's a shame because it would have been pretty interesting if her character was explored further in this game than just being really surface level. This was clearly done because of the sexist thinking of Ubisoft's executives at the time, that the role of the female characters of the game was reduced far more than it should have been originally, which is why Aya is just relegated to doing pointless naval missions. Her writing just feels unfinished, and that's what I feel about the origin of the Assassin Brotherhood storyline. The meaning behind the creed and why the Brotherhood was created in the first place is barely touched upon in the main story. It's just Bayek and Aya deciding that they need a new order on the beach with epic Ezio family theme playing in the background, giving the illusion that the scene means more than it actually does. It's really the music and the feels doing the heavy lifting here, not really the writing. Like seriously, Charles Schachner cooked with the soundtrack of this game. That's just my opinion on the writing of the game. It's shallow, surface level, and a lot of the heavy lifting is done by Bayek and Abubakar Salim's amazing performance. But as a game that was clearly marketed to be the origin of the Assassins, it doesn't even go about exploring how the three tenets of the creed came about. It didn't even bother delve deep into the philosophy of the creed. Sure, you can argue that they touched upon it in the Hidden Worlds DLC. It isn't perfect, but they do something. But guess what? This should have been part of the main fucking storyline, which is why the story of Origins fundamentally fails to be anything deep or impactful. And it's such a shame that there was so much there. Part of me thinks that this story is incomplete, like it definitely seemed like they were building towards a sequel. But alas, we never got it, and Ubisoft's tradition of abandoning fan favorite characters after one game continued. Another thing that really disappointed me was the reveal of the main villain of the game being Flavius. Like it's just an ordinary henchman of Caesar, who we only catch a glimpse of in like a few scenes before killing him. This is meant to be the final antagonist of this game. Like, why is the story of this game so weirdly structured and written? And of course, it doesn't help that the grind in between really fucks with the pacing so much. What's wild is that the main campaign of this game, if you remove all the grind, is only around 6 to 8 hours. And that's clearly not enough to fully explore the origin story of the Assassin Brotherhood. Again, a genuinely cool storyline ruined by artificially stretching out the game so Ubisoft can sell their fucking time saver packs. This game is where Ubisoft really leaned hard in designing their games in this way. Well, we clearly see the result of that now, which is a rushed storyline, barely given time to flesh out characters, and just missed potential. The other members of the Order are also pretty forgettable, to be honest. I mean, at this point, I think it's pretty standard for the series to have cliché villains, even though it had some of the most interesting villains in the series back in the day. I think it's even more upsetting that this game also barely explores the Order of the Ancients either, who are clearly foils for the Hidden Ones, and if the game gave time to ponder upon their worldview and thinking, it could have added depth and meaning behind why Bayek chose to create the Hidden Ones to combat their ideals. But again, they just seem like bad guys for the sake of it by saying cliché lines like, "You cannot stop the Order, we will find and kill you," blah blah. It's just so lame, man. We also got the present day, which honestly I could see that they were setting up cool things with a brand new protagonist Layla and a brand new storyline. Yet it's such a shame that this entire Layla storyline feels so disconnected across games, and the final conclusion that we do get with the story in Valhalla just feels empty and unsatisfying, to be honest. They were clearly setting up some cool stuff with the messages that we found in the Isu temple, yet none of that is touched upon in the sequel, and Valhalla just pulls the rise of Skywalker and tries to wrap up the story of 2 games in one. Of course that would be messy. Which is why I just felt disappointed by the story of this game at the end of the day. I really hoped that I would like this game on a replay, guys. I really did. But unfortunately, I couldn't. It's a shame that this game does such irreparable damage to the franchise and its identity, and you can argue that Odyssey and Valhalla make it much worse in comparison, but the center of that problem was clearly Origins, and it grew even worse with those games. I wish I could love Origins, but I cannot forgive it for not even doing what it set out to do by not giving us a deep and meaningful origin story of the Brotherhood, but also fundamentally ruining important lore points set up in the previous games. For it took away what made this franchise unique and it turned it into a shallow and bloated RPG. And I'm happy for you if you enjoy this direction, but I also wish that a clear balance could have been struck between the two. Like hell, the God of War 2018 reboot clearly does this by honoring what came before and also evolving itself for the new players. But the Assassin's Creed series just killed off what remained in the process of evolving, and I don't think I can ever get back that series that I fell in love with. So I hope you guys understand this video. You don't have to agree with me here, but I want to make this video to share what I feel about this game and clearly the RPG trilogy in general. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like, share this video and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. And let me know what you guys think about Origins and the RPG games in general in the comments below. I would also appreciate some good feedback to see what I can do better next time. So I wish you guys a good day and I'll see you guys soon with another video in the near future. Bye bye guys.